This is your brother Surreal Sunstone, and this is Surreal Stream TV. In Lakesh Alakim, Hunab Ku Namaste. We have a very special international guest here today, K65, also known as Ken65. Chantelle, how you doing this dawning?
I'm great, thank you. Galactic rising to the world whenever you see this.
Yes, we're gonna jump right in. Chantelle is becoming a life coach as we speak on paper, but has already started dabbling in that field. She does motivational truth speaking on social media platforms and holds bi weekly talk sessions on Clubhouse in alignment with spiritual awakening and freeing the mind. She does them alongside Ashay Naira, who we just interviewed recently. Check that out on YouTube as well. Chantelle just recently came out of prison 2.5 years ago. She is still finding her way in terms of moving more into her purpose and creating in the physical/material third dimension. Chantelle, wow.
Mhm.
The last part of your bio, let alone your first part, is
Mhm.
definitely intriguing.
Yes.
Where would you like to begin?
To be honest, we can kind of just start from, growing up or, the old spiritual awakening, wherever you kind of want to take it off from, to be honest. Do you kind of want to go back a bit before the spiritual awakening?
Yes, give us a brief intro of Chantelle before.
Okay, cool. And let's take it from there. So me, I am Chantelle, kin 65. If you don't know what a kin number is, that's in alignment with the Mayan calendar or the Mayan cosmology and all of that type of stuff. Um, do your research. But yeah, in terms of just me, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I've definitely come from higher dimensions to come and assist the planet in raising its consciousness. So me, I've always from young knowing that I was here for something greater. I've always had a deep yearning and felt something. So, just rolling on from that, I had a kind of a negative childhood,
Mm.
a lot of trauma and a lot of just, emotional abuse. I witnessed physical abuse. And, I didn't grow up with my real mum. The family member who took me on, obviously, this is where I experienced this, but I'm also aware that I created that. And I just had a sort of turmoil, rough kind of upbringing. It weren't the worst because I had, physical, I was cared for physically. I had everything I needed in terms of physical stuff or material stuff. But in terms of emotional support, loving support, spiritual guidance, that sort of stuff wasn't nourished. And so it just kind of led me on a turmoil road, just a road of just confusion, depression, not really understanding life. And it was literally a downhill spiral. And I eventually kind of hit a point where I was really depressed. I was living by myself and I just wanted to kill myself, basically. I'd been doing 9 to 5s that I hated, that I knew again weren't in alignment with that inner yearning that I had. I knew I was here for something greater than to be sat on a desk or, just whatever. And so, it was just kind of a turmoil spiral. And then as I was in my own flat, I hit kind of depression, rock bottom. And it pushed me to have a spiritual awakening. So I had literally one night, I got home from work and I remember I just got on my hands and knees. And at this point, I think I weighed my lowest weight, maybe about 8 stone or so. I was smoking a lot of weed. I weren't eating, and I was literally just living to survive or living to work just to pay my bills. I was drained. And, it was one night I got home from this job and I just broke down, got on my hands and knees. And I literally just said, if there's a God, if there's anything out there, like, tell me what it is I'm here to do, because I'm dying. And in that moment, now I know that I surrendered. True surrender is when you have your spiritual awakening, when you surrender the ego to the point where there's nothing else that you're yearning for other than your truth from within, other than you want to know what's in your heart. So that is the surrender that I had, and that pushed me into the spiritual awakening. I literally, after that prayer, I smoked a spliff, I put on some meditation because I was kind of doing that at that time. I fell asleep and I literally woke up and I was never the same again. And yeah, I knew, now I know, obviously, and I kind of figured out somewhat at the time when I started to speak to other people that I'd had a spiritual awakening. The third eye opened fully wide and I was ready to start the spiritual journey. And yeah, that kind of happened. But 4 months after that, funny enough, that happened in November 2017. So 4 months after that, I actually went to Prism. Yeah, and I just come out a year ago. So I ended up doing 2.5 years and I just come out a year ago. So yeah, and yeah, that's kind of, do you want to ask any, or that's kind of the first sort of bit of how I got to Prism.
Wow. Well, if you don't mind me asking,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned your third eye popped open.
Mm-hmm.
Previously to your third eye coming online, as I like to say,
Mm-hmm.
were you aware of a third eye, first eye, as it also is referenced?
I think I knew that there was a spiritual world, and I think I maybe sort of come across maybe books or stuff here or there about third eyes, but I didn't know too much about third eye. But I knew there was spiritual. I knew there was a spiritual world. I knew there was more to life than this. I knew. And again, I've always believed from young that I was a soul in a body. So, you know, when you have that eye popping moment and the realization comes to you that you're a spiritual being having this human experience, it totally just, okay, I've always kind of somewhat thought that anyway, because I thought we were just, souls in a body. So yeah, so I kind of just knew that kind of aspect of stuff, not the certain details of there being chakras or a third eye or this, that, you know. Because you come across that, do you come across that information sometimes too? But again, if you're not fully conscious, then it kind of just bypasses you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I feel like I definitely sort of probably come across it.
Wow. Now, if you don't mind hovering for a moment in that moment when your first eye came online, can you give us a little bit of detail of what you saw?
You know, when I woke up the next morning, dawning, I remember opening my eyes and I had no thought. So I didn't see anything, or it wasn't like that. I had no thought. Like I was an overthinker. I was, you know, as I say, in depression. When you're locked into depression, you're locked into that little voice. That little voice in your head controls you. So, you know, that voice was always chattering. So when I woke up that dawning, there was no voice. Like, it was pure silence. I even tried to force myself to try and think because this silence felt weird. You know, I knew something had changed. And I remember I got out of bed and I walked downstairs. I remember everything feeling, you know, like, oh my God, I felt connected to everything. Like, what is this that I was feeling? And then I walked downstairs into the, not kitchen, bathroom. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, this isn't me. I'm not this body, because I've again too always sort of had self-hate, you know, hate of the body, especially when I started to lose weight too and fall down to 8 stone. I started to then hate my body. I started to then, you know, I was losing everything. So yeah, I remember looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, like, it's not real. Like, I'm not this body. And again, you know, that feet, you know, that knowing that I had, we were a soul in a body. It was kind of just clarified in that moment. Oh my God, I was right. I knew. Yeah, we're just a soul. We're a spiritual being. This body is just the physical avatar. It's just a vehicle, you know. So again, it was just kind of those certain truths that I somewhat had a knowing of were just confirmed, and I knew, yeah. You know, and that was just, and I was in an awe state from then, to be honest. I was literally just in awe. I remember going outside and I felt connected to everything, like to the trees, to the bin, to the this. I was like, oh my God, this is just all energy. And I was on cloud 9 for about a week straight. Yeah.
Wow. Hearing that deep state of peace you're in, and the integration of all of how you feel and how you now see versus how you previously were seeing, and then waking up in that space, would you say that, did it feel like a movie, as they say?
Yeah, I think it felt like, even now sometimes, yeah, it feels so unreal. Like,
Unreal.
because you know, like, everything that I'd always believed in as a child. But again, I never expressed it because I thought people would call me crazy, or, I denied it to myself, or even, people around me denied certain stuff. Oh, that isn't true, or this is aliens aren't true, or other entities aren't true. So again, I just picked up, and I'm quite sensitive. I'm an empath. Like, I kind of really soak up stuff. So I kind of just soaked up a lot of those disbeliefs, that negativity. So finally, when I had this awakening, it was kind of like a movie. I could not believe that, oh my God, everything what I knew was real. Like, again, too, because I've always kind of believed in conspiracies. I've always kind of known that this world don't add up. They say certain stuff, but it don't mean that or this. So again, to know that I'm not crazy. Everything what I knew was right, even when not a soul around me believed in me. Because a lot of my family, I feel, it's just kind of I love them a lot, and obviously I have that emotional connection, but it is just kind of a karmic family. When I say that, I mean, I don't really have any sort of spiritual connection kind of thing to much of them, So there is one or two family members that is kind of coming into this state of spirituality awakening, but slowly. So, but other than that, it's still not really in the space that I'm in. So again, having that disconnect, it just, yeah, man, for me, I felt so like alienated in it, and I just couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe that, what everything I'd kind of known had been confirmed, and this really was, in essence, a Matrix movie. Like, it is all an illusion. That, again, too, was a crazy bit for me to believe, because knowing that every single thing is energy, and really at the corest point, this reality is just all a dream. At the corest point, it's not even really happening. That's some of the craziest things to accept sometimes, those really out there wacky things that come to you when you have this awakening. That's also what kind of made me feel like, this is just a movie. It's crazy.
Yes. And one thing I like to always say is that, within what is artificial, there's always what is natural and organic. And it's that overlap.
Yeah.
There is what's behind the scenes, what's behind the veil. Now, you touched on so many defining points in your own specific journey. I think one of the things that jumped out at me was that you've always felt, as a young child, that there's something more. You felt something spiritually greater, but like a lot of us, because of our environment, we struggle with describing it, with fully embracing it. Because like you said something else defining. A lot of us have walked around thinking that we are really crazy. Thinking there's a term used, in psychiatry, if I have it correct. It's either psychiatry or it may even be in law enforcement. They use this term called 5150. That's a term for crazy.
Oh, no way. Okay. Well, I'm 5150 then.
Look at you. I guess that we all are on many levels. Based on who's looking at us and assessing us and, giving their diagnosis, prognosis. Can I ask you this? Wow. Man, I'm sitting there reflecting on what you shared. And
thank you.
I mean, again, I appreciate your transparency and your authenticity.
Thanks.
To be as open with it. Because, again, a lot of us, even whether young or old, are struggling. And a lot of people suppress these transformational moments in their life. With your first eye coming online, first eye, third eye, and that deep state of peace. And you mentioned that week where you were just in sync with everything. Anything else during that week that was a defining moment or another level of a breakthrough within that week you would like to share?
I think another breakthrough in that moment, I'd have to say, like, coming to the realization that, unconditional love is, or what real love is unconditional. And when I say unconditional, I mean every single person has to come in that. It doesn't matter what they've done, even if they've done the worst crime in the world. If you have to, if you want to move in a God vibration, you have to move with unconditional love. That's God. That's universe, higher power, whatever you refer to it as. So that, I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of us to accept. We won't accept people that have done crazy stuff or stuff that we just won't, that just isn't right. Obviously certain stuff, on a human level, what the hell, or just a moral level, it's not good, it's not nice. But again, these people have to come, we have to include every single person, every race, no matter what's happened. Like, we have to include every single person and love them for the God in them, not for what their human self, their ego self has played out. So again, I think that was another just breakthrough moment, that like what real unconditional love is. Because again, I think we're so distorted on the planet, and I myself have been somewhat distorted getting stuck in the programming. Because again, my love has always been deep like this. I've always known since I was a little girl. I always used to see stuff on the TV, for instance, like murderers or people who have done sexual abuse crimes and stuff, and I always used to look at them and I never used to judge. I used to say, why do these people do this stuff? It used to I used to be confused, but I always questioned it. I want to know, and again, when people sort of watch this stuff on the news or they see it and they kind of, they curse them and, oh, they're horrible, they're this or that. I always thought, what's the point of doing that? Clearly these people need love. Love is the only thing that can heal, right? So
Right.
it's not to say that I accept what they do, but it's to say that I understand, if I'm God and if I have a heart and if I want to really make an impact in the world, then I would have to love these people. That would be the best way I could help them. That would be the best way I could help the planet and help anybody else. So I don't know, for me, in that experience, again, it was kind of confirmed for me, true love, that my heart has always been pure, and I weren't crazy for that, because again, I think I always thought, oh, people might sound crazy if I tell them this stuff, if I tell them that I accept everyone. They say, oh, they might say, oh, why are you accepting that person, or oh, you're weird like them, so I kind of hid that stuff away. So yeah, definitely in that eye-popping moment, I think really realizing, because I remember I went to my friends in that state moment, and I ended up, obviously, when you kind of have your first eye-popping moment, you kind of just want to tell everyone, it kind of all comes out of you. So I remember going to my friends in this state, and I remember we just got into a deep talk about life. These were two best friends I had at the time, and I started explaining to them what true self-love was, and I explained exactly what I just said to you, that we have to love every single person no matter what. And I remember one of them kind of saying, oh no, like no, I'm not accepting that, and it kind of made me feel weird. It kind of made me feel like I was weird then, or I was sick, or I was, why am I accepting everyone? But so then again, that's where when I went back into my own sort of space again, I realized, no, my heart's big. I'm the embodiment of unconditional love. That's why I feel like this. My friends don't have to feel like that. That's because they're not operating in that state yet. So yeah, it was really what real unconditional love is, and what does it really mean to embody that?
Wow. You know what? It is very interesting hearing you share, and when you reference the term, as we use, English to define everything, unconditional love. I'm evolving with that, because I come to recognize that the heart, which is really the first true brain,
Mm-hmm.
it operates when it's in its full alignment and state, and there's no suppression or trauma drama running around within that particular circuit or section of the brain. It
Mm-hmm.
operates in what we define as being unconditional. It's pure. It's 100%. It just flows. It just
That's
does.
it.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
this is right for the right moment, for this right time, no matter what
Mm-hmm.
anyone else thinks, feels, or however they choose to see. The unconditional state in that moment is unconditional. It's like a direct bullseye to the inner spirit soul circuit of the universal fabric, or the cosmic fabric, in which we're
Mm-hmm.
all created out of.
Right. And you can no longer see the outer kind of thing. You look through it, you see through it. So
Yes.
again, You know, it's the ego, it's the human self in essence that does these bad things in the world, that gets caught in its own darkness. So again, if I know that truly we're spiritual beings and the human self in essence is not who you are at the corest point, then then you're God, then you're love. So that's it. And again, why am I gonna waste my time anymore? Not to say that I haven't done this, because I have, but I mean, again, you know, moving more on the evolution process is realizing, why am I going to let anybody else affect me from unconditionally loving? I don't care what you've done. That's not my problem. That's your karma. You know, again, that doesn't stop me from seeing the God in you. And I love you for the God that I see in you. I don't love you for what your ego has done. But again, I recognize too that that is also in a way divine, because the ego has to play out in order for us to experience certain stuff, in order for us to evolve. So there is a level of, again, it has to play out. Again, it's not condoning what plays out, but there is a level of universal law that is playing out for whoever's experiencing what they're experiencing. They're attracting, like attracts like, or, you know, karma being played out, past lives, whatever they've agreed to do in this life. Who knows? There's so many different reasons to why stuff can play out. But again, having that perspective and knowing that, again, then I recognize, why am I going to judge you on what you've done and whatever? That might be your experience, your karma, your this, your that. So that's not my problem to judge your ego, because then I would be falling into my ego. And again,
Right.
what is the point? What is the point of that? If I judge you, then I'm just in the same place as you. So I just see, unconditional love. I just got to see the God in you. If you're for me, we'll resonate. If you're not for me, then I keep it moving and I love anyway.
You know what? And that's what it is. You know, in my spiritual opinion, we all have a way of filtering that process as we experience third density or the physical realm of life,
Mm-hmm.
while being a ancient spirit and soul, and filtering what works and what doesn't, as I've come to learn in my own evolution, is very critical and crucial. Because again, like you state, you know, it's all part of the universal equation, as in what we define as being, you know, loosely referenced as negative or positive, or I may not like this about you, or I like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
recognize too, ultimately, as you fil- filter or specify what works, you know, things, for me, I've had to let go of a lot of things. I've had to shed a lot of things. A lot of things had to be removed from my life. And I had to agree with that as well. That the season, reason, time, and place for that experience has ended. And I
Mm-hmm.
still have, you know, it's like you wish a person well, you know, you give them that universal cosmic love from a distance, but I'm like, this door and chapter has now closed.
Right,
And
right.
sometimes that can be, for some of us, based on where we are in our development, it can be very challenging to embrace that and be as automatic as it's requiring you to be.
100%. And when you've had trauma revolved around certain stuff, you know, a lot of people, even I've myself, have had a little sort of experience, nothing too bad, but you know, we've had abuse happen to us. We've seen murder, or just, I don't know, stuff happen in our community. If you're melanated, you know what's
Right.
happening in your generation, in your bloodline, and in just what's happened to all of us. So, you know, again too, we have them emotional connections and reactions, and again, we somehow let the ego find a reason to judge that person still based on that sort of stuff. Like, no, I've had that happen to me, and no, you know, I can't forgive that was just too whatever, or, you know. And then again, that's how we keep ourselves in our own suffering, you know. So yeah, it's hard though, but it has to be done. I personally say, if you want to get to this chorus point of unconditional pure peace, God, love, then you have to get unconditional, and you have to sieve through that stuff and be willing.
You know, and I agree with you. There's a lot of, as I've filtered what you're sharing, I always filter everything I hear and say. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
way that I integrate or connect or reinforce or reflect. And, you know, unconditional love in third dimension is a very interesting equation, because we know it is very
Yes.
critical and crucial. And we know we want to be a representative or a diplomat of it. But can
Mm-hmm.
you imagine, like you mentioned, the trauma and the drama that many of us are still working ourselves through.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have someone who's totally in a level of a traumatic state, and they can take, what is unconditional as a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
They can take it as, well, I'm just going to use this person and get every and any and everything out of them because they can't see fully me and what I'm really thinking and doing, let alone, what I say I want to do opposite of what I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in saying that, I'm just saying, in my opinion, it can be creatively challenging with how we show it, but nonetheless, it's all around us. Everything is infused with it. And I think in third dimension, as I come to learn over the years, there's some things that are just, they're meant to be looked at and reflected, and other things are meant to be integrated. But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean, at least in my spiritual opinion or assessment, that you're not still in a unconditional state for self first. Because
Mm-hmm.
self-preservation, I come to learn, is very key in this process.
Yeah.
Because I recognize that there's certain things that are very linear and material
Mm-hmm.
that they require a certain mentality or mindset. They don't care about the unconditional. They're like, look, either Chantelle, you're gonna sign this and we're gonna give you that, or you're gonna, we're gonna say excuse me if we happen to step on your foot, or we may not say excuse me, or you know, when it comes to dealing with, okay, that, you got to do this, you got to pay your
Mm-hmm.
bill, certain things, based on who you're speaking with, they may
Yeah.
give you an extension on the bill or not due to our story, or they may say, I'm sorry, ma'am or sir, due to the business nature of this, unless you can find a way to pay or some other way, all services are cut.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
imagine balancing unconditional love from the spirit part of you, the soul part of you, in a physical density that's very much very controlled and scripted, and the problems are intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Like these problems are done intentional within a system to cause the more pain and suffering, more chaos and confusion,
Mm-hmm.
when the opposite of that equation is being harmonic, in balance, being fully unconditional in its
Mm-hmm.
universal essence state,
Yeah.
and then recognizing that there is no problem without its counterpart or equation, which is solution or positivity. Would you mind sharing your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, like you said, like it is really hard to embody. It is, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy for me because it's bloody well not, you know. But again, it's that willingness.
Right.
It's that knowing that it's knowing first what it truly is, and then you can kind of work towards that in your time, you know, however you need to, however much time you need to, you know, there's no rush, or well, there is a level of you got to do the work. Don't just stay stagnant. But again, there isn't a time frame on healing. Just, yeah, it's just about trying to just slowly embody it as much as you can. And I think, you know, like you say, the system and the world that we live in doesn't make it easy, you know, but that shouldn't hinder us from moving into that space, because at the chorus point, again, nothing outside of you can control you. I don't give a bleep what it is. I don't. There's nothing. There's not a dis-ease. There's not a person. There's not an experience. There's nothing unless you let it. Nothing
Right.
outside of you can govern you. And again, when you have the knowing that in essence this is all just energy, then you know you can kind of really just keep tuning yourself back into that space, you know, or have the willingness to keep researching and try and figure out what your safe space is, where you're you know, where that space is within yourself, or you know, and let go of, in essence, what the system is doing, because they're going to do what they're going to do. That's their purpose. They're fulfilling their purpose. So
Yeah.
so in essence, how about you just forget them and fulfill yours? And your purpose is to unconditionally love. Your purpose is to do the exact opposite of what the system does. So if they're doing what they're doing, then again, your purpose is to not even remotely complain about anything. Like I say, no matter how bad it is, how worse it is, no matter what they're portraying or showing, again, you have to know that it is a ploy. When they share a lot of these stuff on the news, the COVID fears, the horrible crimes that happen in the world, or the this, the that. And I'm not to say, yeah, that, you know, some of this awareness and stuff shouldn't be shared, because there is a level of, you know, change and certain stuff that people can do somewhat on the physical plane. But mostly, you know, if any, all change really truly happens from within. So the real kind of thing is, again, to take your focus off of anything outside the system, the news, the media, the this, the that. You know, what we as a human think is bad or good. You know, try and just remove those labels for a second and just see the God in everything. If you see the God in yourself, then you're bound to see it in everything. And again, that's always just going to help you center back and not let this world distort you, because that's what it's here to do. You know, you have to get so stern within yourself that this world doesn't distort you. And I think, like, my biggest thing for me is learning that in prison. So like, in prison, I learned, bro, there's nothing that can control me. When I used to be locked up in that room, you know, like, for instance, example, yeah, when COVID happened, we got locked down. I was coming up to the end of my sentence, but I had 9 more months to go, and we got locked down from March, and I left in October. So, and the girls are still locked up now. This is how crazy this system is, how they're trying to really, you know, turn people cuckoo. So yeah, so from March till October, lockdown for 9 months straight in the room, 24 hours, did not leave that cell, small box. And, you know, we used to go out like for an hour a day. At first it was only for half an hour. And I never used to go out in the morning. They used to want to pull us out in the morning, Monday to Friday at 8. And I used to say, no, I'm not going out that early. So I used to sit in that room for every single day, Monday to Friday straight. Only left to go and empty my bin, or sometimes to use the phone. And in the end, we weren't even allowed to use the phone no more. The phone had to come to you. So that's about 120 hours I done straight in the room, didn't leave. So you see that moment there, that's too when I really learned freedom and all sorts of just joy, love, whatever it is you're trying to get. It's all the mind. It's all the inner world. It's nothing to do with outside. So with, again, with that level of knowing, there's nothing that can distort that, you know. And again, I learned in there how to not, or to stop putting the blame on the system again. Like, because, you know, there's many times I could have put the blame on the guards, or put the blame on the fact that I'm in, you know, in this prison and this didn't happen. And don't get me wrong, I complain sometimes, I weren't happy sometimes, you know, this, that, but most of the time I kind of dealt with it pretty well, only because, though, I had this level of knowing now, you know. And again, that's what kind of taught me to really look at people too from all walks of life, because I was around murderers, normal people, shoplifters, pedophiles. I was around all of them, you know, people who have done just violent crimes, just crazy violent stuff. So all sorts of people. And again, that's where I really learned, you know, am I gonna let these people control me? Am I gonna say, oh, you know, she's this, she's that, oh my God, I don't want to be around her, I'm gonna have a fight with her, I'm gonna do this, what, am I gonna do that and waste my time? Or am I gonna, you know, focus from within?
Wow. You know what? I definitely agree with what you're saying. And you give a very profound breakdown.
Thank you.
Wow. There's so many things you shared in that is very, it's multi-layered and leveled. And what I do here as I reflect on my own evolution is when you're able to separate, but nonetheless integrate, but nonetheless balance the whole equation. And then when you put the spiritual ashe, or the ancient spiritual energetics, that cosmic force over it, it goes to another level within your emotional, mental, overall spiritual, soulful state. And then now your physical demonstration can match the inner transformation.
That's it.
And you touch on, you know, having to come to terms with some real challenging or difficult moments in feeling and thought. but nonetheless reset back in those moments, no matter how random they may be within a day,
Mm-hmm.
to who you know you really are.
That's it, 100%. And the
Eh,
perfect example of just, sorry, quickly, is
no, go ahead.
like one time in one of the prisons that I had, that I was first in, sorry, I remember, there was this particular girl, and that we found out that she'd done a horrible crime. And obviously, people started to kind of pick on her and say, "Oh my God, we found out what you done now." Da, 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 da. And obviously, they locked her up and they had to move her off the wing because obviously, people would have tried to do stuff to her and whatever. So for her safety, and I remember I went and got involved, and I went to the girl's door, and I was a bit like, oh, why did you do that? Like, you lied. And then I remember thinking, like, I went back in my room after, and I felt like, Chantelle, what are you doing? Like, this is not you. Like, you're not like everyone else. Like, in essence, like I say, I don't agree with what it was, but I don't care. Not because I don't care about humanity, but again, because I recognize that I'm beyond this now. I'm beyond these earthly experiences. I'm beyond this negativity in a way. I'm beyond this 3D stuff. As I said, that's your karma. That's for you to deal with. I don't need to take that on. So yeah, prison was a real good place to really like make me look at the world and look at myself and accept, yeah.
Can I ask you this? And you
Hmm.
mentioned, wow, when people hear the term prison or incarceration, and it's usually a lot of times it's, we have this certain stigma in our mind or thought of a person, and
Hmm.
usually it's something that becomes very common to men. But as there are a lot of women, young and old, just like there are young and old men who have experienced, some form of incarceration or lockup, whether
Hmm.
as a teenager or youth or a young adult or adult or as an adult or an older adult or as an elder, and sharing what led to you experiencing 2.5 years of incarceration. I mean, I would love to hear if you would mind sharing
Hmm.
what
Yes, so
led up to that moment.
so
Yes.
so obviously, remember I said I'd just had the spiritual awakening in November 2017. So where I just had the spiritual awakening, obviously I literally, after having the spiritual awakening too, I ended up getting fired from a job that I was doing. And I was working in like a housing job in the repairs team and stuff, just normal computer. And yeah, I literally got fired. Like, I can't really remember. I'm sure maybe a week or so or whatever, which is kind of like, synchronistic too to a lot of other stories. When people have their awakening, they get fired or they quit or they just like, I'm done with this now. You kind of have that. Yeah. So yes, I just got fired, and then I remember I was like, oh shit, I need to pay my bills though. I have a flat still, but obviously, I'm not creating money off of purpose yet. I wasn't even fully sure what my purpose was as such. I knew I was here to just kind of speak some truth, but I weren't really sure how and stuff. So I ended up just holding a firearm, which is a gun, and I started growing weed in my living room. And that literally, I done that literally just for money, just to get paid. And I was gonna get the money from it, pay off my bills for a couple months in advance, 6 months or year or longer, a year or so, or however I worked it out. And my plan was to just go and find myself, go travel and just have that weight off my shoulders. But the person who bought me the firearm, who the police obviously was watching them or whatever, and long story short, obviously they followed them to my house, and within 24 hours of me taking it, not even 24 hours, less than 24 hours, my house got raided, and I went straight to prison, literally. So
Wow.
yeah, that was the human level. But at a higher level, it was none of that. At a higher level, I was meant to go. That whole experience of me holding the firearm, I genuinely know it had to happen on the physical plane in order for me to go prison.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like I needed to do a crime in essence for me to go prison. Which, and again, if it was just the weed wouldn't have put me in prison. Over here, that weed that would get you like a caution, or you wouldn't get I wouldn't have got time for it. So I feel like me taking the firearm was in a way destiny, because I needed something to go to prison. So, you know, that was what's put me in prison. And I felt I was meant to be there. I felt it was destined.
Wow. So hearing Ken 65, Chantelle speak on being about that life.
Sorry, it's 11:11. Hey.
There we go,
There we
11:11.
go.
It's popping. It's
Hey.
popping right at that moment when Chantelle was popping. Oh man. And you know, what I would like to share real quick is that certain things in our life, they have to happen, especially if we're in a state or in a lack of an aware state within a certain portion of our development, to say, nah, this is not the path you're meant to go down and where you're meant to be. If anything, this is going to be a temporary holding tank or quote unquote cell for you to recharge yourself and awaken yourself to see that you don't belong here. And if you keep going against that higher force within you, then your free will state will be, you know, this until you get
Yes.
tired of it.
And so that's it. That is it. That is
Wow.
it right there.
Well, and again, I appreciate your transparency. And in
Thank you.
asking you this, you know, what did you think in that moment when your house got raided?
Ah, God. I remember when I had that door booted. At first, I thought it was a TV license, people, because I ain't paying for no TV. Yeah, I'm not paying for this Matrix stuff. So at first, you know, the first few knocks, I thought it was a TV license. I remember, you know, I literally just woke up out of sleep too. So I was
Oh
sleeping,
man.
and it was 7. Yeah, it was 7 in the evening. So I'd literally just woke. I can't fully remember if I'd started to wake up because I've subconsciously heard knocking, or if I just naturally woke up. But either way, I remember I just started stretching out of bed. And obviously, like I say, I heard the knocking and I thought it's TV license. So I'm creeping outside, you know, I'm looking outside, and I'm just thinking, oh, you know, TV license. And then as I'm hearing it getting louder and keep going, my heart started to, I had that butterfly feeling, that dread feeling, and I kind of knew potentially it was police, but then a part of me was just nah. And then, you know, boom, they came through the door, and I kind of was just froze, to be honest. And you know, they came in like, get down, get down, get down, all of that. Because obviously they knew they was coming for a firearm. So obviously, you know, when they're coming for that, they have to kind of be, not to say that they're not serious, but, you know, really just be on it. So obviously, you know, they it was all men that came in and like, get down, get down. And I'm like, ah, like I didn't even just know what to do, kind of thing. Because, you know, again too, I've always heard about this stuff and seen it on the TV, but actually have it happening to you was just, yeah. And you know, again too, yeah, I thought it was super weird and crazy for me because I knew too, this ain't me. So when it was happening to me too, I'm like, what is happening? Like, this is not
Wow.
me.
Wow.
So yes, I felt like a weird mix of emotion, I remember. And you know, even the policemen, they were really nice to me because I feel like, again, maybe, you know, just my energy, they was just like making like jokes. They were just, it was like if they were searching for a toy. It wasn't like they was, you know, like they even picked up my sage and made a joke about, you know, oh, you burn, like, you know. So it was just kind of like, huh, what am I doing? Like what's going on here? And then it kind of, then it, yeah, so it went kind of mixed into then a state of like, I'd say anxiety and worry, because then when I, you know, obviously they found the weed first, and then they asked, and I didn't say nothing more, and then they asked me, you know, is there anything else here? And then that's when I kind of thought, oh shit, you know, they know now, and I'm definitely going to prison now. Like my ass is gone now because I knew a firearm is serious. So yeah, so then when that was moving along now in the search, that's when I kind of just felt, yeah, the anxiety, the worry, the, you know, came along, and the tears started to come a little bit. And I think I just, in that moment, I felt like I'd ruined my life. Like I thought I was going to go away for about 10 years or so. I weren't sure on all that type of stuff. So yeah, it was just, yeah, it was a mixed emotions. And then I just felt like dread, anxiety, worry, and then just a bit of disappointment too. And
Right.
shock. There was just, yeah, it was a mixture.
Wow. I mean, here we are talking to K65 Chantelle, and she literally had the strap. Literally, she had the
Literally.
strap and the product.
Mm-hmm.
Chantelle, were you really trying to become the plug or the connect, as they say?
No, I was just trying to make some shmoney out here. I was
Some
just trying to get
shmoney.
my some
Ooh
shmoney, man.
wee. Some shmoney. Some
I was
guap, huh? Some cabbage, some paper,
that's it. I was just trying to get myself
some
out
mean
again.
green.
Yeah, that's it. And I think too, like having the awakening, there you still, when you first have your awakening, you still have a lot of stuff that you can still, it's kind of that weird polarity that you're free, but you're still somewhat kind of attached to certain matrix stuff. So again, too, I was kind of still worried about money and just man. So it was kind of just, I thought too, like, or free, or thinking that again, freedom, even though I had freedom from the mind, again, thinking that, I can get free if I just get this quick money, if I just whatever. But again, not realizing the physical, it worked. To be honest, I remember I kind of knew that I shouldn't have been doing that because I knew it weren't a physical vibrational match. But
Wow,
but
look
but
at that.
but again, there was that element of, even though I just had the spiritual awakening, there was still more fear, like still living within me. So the fear of just money and of losing my flat and of not knowing what to jump to, I ran back to just the old Chantelle, the old ways of, the worldly ways of just, oh yeah, let me just do this quick money. Oh, it's all right. I got a good heart. So if I do this, it's not going to come back to me. But not realizing, no, it will come back to me. It doesn't matter if I've got a good heart. If I am not doing something that is embodying my truth and embodying the good heart in action, then I'm going to pay the consequence for it. And that's again too what I learned. So yeah.
Wow. Again, appreciate your transparency, and you're correct.
Thank you.
If I can share this real quick,
Mm-hmm.
we already know what we should be doing and shouldn't on a inner
Mm-hmm.
spiritual level. But like you say, we take the risks for, as you were sharing, and many of us have, we want that quick lick, that quick fix. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
man, if I can just get that lean, mean green for the moment, I can make it work. I can flip this,
Mm-hmm.
and not recognizing that there is an energetics to having a
Right.
firearm or a strap
Right.
on you, let alone in your environment, especially if it's not registered or it's not used for its proper purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone if you bagging, you got product. Next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, man, I'm trying to get a few dollars, and now you holding work plus the strap, and then you're dealing with
That's it.
individuals of a certain
Mm-hmm.
mentality, and then you never know if they are a CI, confidential informant. You
Mm-hmm.
never know who's watching and following them, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who are in that life and in that world are undercovers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who you could, people you like, oh, I was introduced to such and such, this is a new homegirl, the homie, and kind of find out like, nah, that's one time or 50 or
Mm-hmm.
popo,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as we say, within the states.
Yeah.
That's police all day. That's law enforcement all day. And this
Yeah.
person within their level of undercover, I mean, they blend in like none other.
That's mm-hmm.
But in jumping from that lane, I will say that hearing the fact that again, you knew something was bound to happen. It was just when it was gonna happen. And then when it happened, you like you said, you had a flood of emotions and thoughts. And I'm pretty sure in that moment it got very real, right?
Yeah, 100. Because I remember when I took the firearm, I knew straight away, my gut, I had a gut feeling, and I remember kind of having that voice, don't do this, do not do this. And literally, I remember literally telling that voice, shut up, I need the money. Like I and again, I had that churning belly to not do it, that butterfly, and literally I just completely dismissed it. And I deluded myself by saying, oh, it's all right, it will only be here for a couple hours, I'll be good. Again, I got a pure heart, so if I focus on just my pure heart, I'll be okay. But no, now again too, realizing, you know, when they say, why does bad stuff happen to good people? Because it doesn't matter if you have a pure heart. If you don't embody that and you don't do action and you don't follow it as such, and you think you can worm away and get away with stuff, no, the universal law is coming back for you. That's just, it's not a punishment, it's just an attraction. Like attracts like, it will come, it will match up with you. So yeah, yeah, and it also just taught me too, you know, like I don't want to do stuff like that either. Again, it's not in alignment. I was fearful when the stuff was there. You know, I had anxiety even just when the weed was there, because the weed was there before the firearm. And even then, I was anxious every night. Like, you know, it wasn't. So again, too, recognizing when something's not for you, and then actually being real with yourself, you know,
Right.
and letting it go, and just realizing you can't let fear control you, because if you do, you will end up in situations like that, and you could potentially lose your life. You know, what if that did go a certain way, and I ended up getting 15 years, or, you know, for what? For the sake of what? You know, and even though again there is a level of it would have been destined, but still, you know, if something can be avoided or whatever, you
Avoid
know,
it.
try follow your truth as much as you can, man. And yeah.
That is very, very profound. And like you shared, being able to disconnect, follow that inner guidance and that inner voice, that intuitive knowing state or a state of self awareness in the higher self is very, as I like to say, critical. It can be not only
Mm-hmm.
life saving but life altering.
Yeah.
And hearing you share these things, you know, it's amazing because a lot of us, whether young and old, you know, because of wanting to be popular, wanting not to change, wanting to be something we may see in a video or maybe,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on TV, or something we may have saw growing up on the street corner or in front of the liquor store or behind it. You know, it's like sometimes we get lost in this other character that we've now created based on other characters that we're looking at.
Right.
And anything I always share, I always state from a humble, loving place. But nonetheless, you know, in speaking on it from a transparent but yet piercing and factual standpoint, you know, I think you would agree that, you know, if we don't follow what we're meant to be, and what we're meant to do and where we're meant to go, like you stated, these patterns, they will repeat.
Right.
And can you imagine how many people, you know, and even in my past, there's many people and old friends, you know, from the old neighborhood that are, you know, they're just repeating the same thing, same in, same out, same mindset. And, you know, it can be tough sometimes when it's like, man, you know, you're looking at it, you care about them, you got love for your home girl, your homie, but nonetheless, life and where you are is telling you, look, you have to let them go, send them love and light from a distance, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to now focus on more of your healing and evolving through your trauma. Because if
Right.
not, you know, I'm pretty sure you may have heard this term, you know, when we like, there's something called cords or
Mm-hmm.
entanglement,
Yeah.
and it can get very intense trying to unplug the entanglement or the cord to someone or something that isn't fully serving your higher purpose and development, and the universal forces within you, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
those forces within you and out of you, whether it's your ancestors, your ancient ancestors, your spirit guides, angelic beings, you know, other types of ETs that are benevolent, those
Mm-hmm.
that are of light bearers, those who share a common interest with seeing the evolution of the human species. They're
Mm-hmm.
always sending and dropping messages,
Yeah.
whether you are awake or asleep, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, we are always being guided. There's always synchronistic signs. There's, again, I had that gut feeling. There's always that feeling or that message that we're being sent. But again, it's how open you are, and how honest you are with yourself. Like I said, in that moment, I knew I shouldn't have been doing that, but I weren't being honest with myself, you know? So again, it's being honest with yourself is the biggest thing. in terms of staying in alignment and connecting with the synchronicity and the signs that can guide you if you're trying to navigate and find your way. You know, it's being honest with yourself and realizing what's important, and choosing to want to connect to something higher than you know, higher than yourself. Again, letting go of that ego too, and recognizing that there is something higher than you that's going to guide you. You know, not thinking that you know it all, or you know, just but it's just to be open and to really let yourself trust, you know, in the unknown. And
Yes. You're on point. And as I briefly look up and down at the time, we just crossed over the 55-minute mark, just as a quick highlight. And you said again so many profound statement points, revelations, introspection. I mean, there's so much here that I'm hearing from you. Let me see what there's a few other parts of your story that, let alone everything else that jumped out. But if we can go a little bit back and rewind to now, you're in the process, let's just say, of you've done most of the 2.5 years in the process of about to be released and getting out. What was your mindset and thought process at this point, knowing that your time served is now up and you're going home soon? Any thoughts?
When I got towards the end of my sentence, I actually started to kind of see, when I first got into prison, obviously I just had the spiritual awakening 4 months. So I went to prison April 2018, if I didn't say that, sorry. So 4 months after my awakening. So I'm still very much in that kind of sort of still fresh on the journey. Like, I create my reality, all of that. So when I first kind of went in, I was really kind of focused in on myself. I was getting a bit distracted, but I was doing a lot of like affirmations, reading, and just all that type of stuff. And obviously, I definitely kept on with that throughout my sentence. But I did find myself getting a bit more distracted sometimes. And so then I'd have my moments where I'd tune in, and then I'd get distracted a bit, and then I'd tune in and I'd fluctuate, kind of thing. And coming towards the end, I actually really started to kind of lose myself again, and I started to kind of get distracted. And you know, inside I had relations with girls, and you know, again, I realized I was looking for love outside myself still in relationships. So I actually started to do that towards the end of my sentence, and I realized I think there was a level of anxiety that I was feeling, knowing I was coming out, and again, still in that kind of, oh my God, like, I actually know truth. Like, not much people know this. In prison, there was one other woman who was spiritually awake, one out of 280 women, or it was about, almost 290 or something. There's just under 300 women in that prison that I was in. So there was one other woman who was spiritually awake, and she was much older than me too. So, you know, I didn't, sometimes there wasn't always that connect as such. You know, even though age isn't a thing, still I'm living in a younger avatar. So sometimes I wanted to be around that energy, if that makes sense. So so I didn't always mold with her or always want to be in that space. So so only having her, it kind of made me anxious too, like just, you know, going throughout my sentence and coming up towards the end, because I didn't have anyone, and she left by then too, so I didn't have anyone to kind of express to, share my anxiety with. So I kind of ran back to the old coping mechanisms. And then so I went and just ended up speaking to girls and getting in relations and doing all that type of stuff to kind of distract what I started to feel, those emotions of what I was starting to feel, that unknown again. Oh my God, I don't know what's coming. I'm a bit anxious, you know. I got to deal with my family again, you know, because again, a lot of my family are in their matrix sort of living at the moment. So again, I knew, oh my God, how am I going to deal with them now? And how am I going to show the true me now? Because I know as I evolve more, I know as I say, I'm all about unconditional. I'm pure, I'm deep. I know I'm super deep. I really think I'm rare kind of thing. Yeah, I think it's very rare that I find a lot of people at my level of deepness. So again, I know that I'm just going to be pushed in such a different path. And I was scared too, of just like, how am I going to show the world this path, but still kind of interact with them? How am I going to still interact with my dad as I move into this way of life? And I'm wearing my dashiki every day on the street, walking down the street. I'm rocking my afro. I'm I don't know, get a tattoo or whatever they like. I'm starting to really just embody. I'm gonna have geometry. I want to get some geometry. It's like, what am I really gonna start to look like? I'm really gonna start to look like the outcast. And again, so all of that was going through my head, and just yeah. And I think I was also beating myself up a little bit because I knew I was running to the old coping mechanisms. So then I was kind of annoyed at myself, because I'm like, Chantelle, you're getting ready to be released. You should be focusing on all the affirmations right now, on all the meditation right now, on all the this. And I kept picking up books, because remember, we was on lockdown. So, but I had a little job in between that time. So that's how I got out my room, and that's how I was able to kind of still get in relations with girls and stuff. So yeah, we, in that moment, it was just still doing little bits what I could have been doing, but yeah, not fully focusing on it. And then I was asking myself, Chantelle, what are you doing? But yeah, I was still just, I guess the coping mechanisms and stuff were stronger than the mind. The body has its own sort of programming. It carries its own trauma. It carries its own. The body, in essence, becomes the mind, And so even though your mind might say, I know I shouldn't be doing that, I don't want to do that. If your body is conditioned to those feelings, and you're addicted to it, and there's certain programming within you that you haven't really dealt with, then, you'll get led astray. The body will take you where it wants to go, even though the mind is like, I want to be healthy. I want to do this. I want to leave prison, right?
That's very profound, and there's many things I hear in your sharing when it comes to what is defined as the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind, and the battle. Now, can you imagine? On average, they say the human species only uses 5 to 10% of its consciousness, but it has a 90 to 95% in subconscious programming that is default in the background, running on autopilot. Even though it seems dormant, nonetheless, there is programming in things that have been passed genetically that is there as well. Let alone the ancientness of who you are, that's in what is called your, as Western scientists term it, quote unquote, junk DNA. We know there's nothing junk in DNA. There's nothing junk in the universal creation. It's just inactive software within the cell.
Right.
This cellular spiritual technology, information and knowledge and wisdom waiting to be applied in what is quote unquote called junk DNA. Now, in sharing this real quick with you, you stated how, coping mechanisms. That's very crucial. A lot of us to today are still doing that. And that puts us around people, places, things, and ideas that will confirm the same in old behavior, traits, and patterns. And as we become more consciously aware, what I'm learning is when you can take things from the subconscious mind and move them into your fractal 5 to 10% conscious mind, but through a healing state, you can process through them a lot faster and a lot more thorough. And now you reprogram the circuitry within a certain section or quadrant of your brain, which allows now the mental field to come in and align itself appropriately so you can see through these circumstances and situations, or you can get the epiphany or the divine, as I like to say, upload and download creatively, or the creative thought or the creative problem solving to the particular issue, and actually know that this is going to end that particular situation or circumstance and keep building from there.
Right.
And again, as you know, it is a process. It is a serious journey of self-awareness. Come on now, right?
Yeah, and listen, it takes some real consciousness. It takes some real sturdiness from within to move through this life and to really heal. Like you have to really be present and generate enough to see through your own illusions or you know the world's illusions and again be honest with yourself, you know, about what you're really, because again a lot of us can do stuff and just think, you know, because again too, even as I was running back to the old coping mechanisms and I'm getting ready to leave and I'm like, you know, Chantelle, why are you doing this? But then there was a level of I I couldn't even stop because again, like I had feeling still just anxious and low sort of feeling. So, and even though again I was like, you know, reading certain stuff and saying certain affirmations, you know, I'm going to be safe as I leave. I'm going to be trusted. I'm going to be guided. I weren't really feeling what I was saying, you know. So again, I was kind of deluding myself as in, oh yeah, I'm fine, man. Oh yeah, I could do this and have a bit of fun with this girl just before I leave. It's cool. It's whatever. But it's like, no, be honest with yourself. Like, this is a coping mechanism. This is not truly what you want. It's not really going to bring you what you want. It's not going to be a benefit to you as you're getting ready to leave now, you know. So why are you doing it? You know, but then yeah, if you lie to yourself and you don't have enough consciousness or enough awareness, or you're not willing to put the time in to generate that, then again, yeah, you'll just have these experiences or these things, these emotions rule you.
Oh
And
man, I
you
mean,
find,
again, you said, and I apologize if I'm jumping your thought. You have shared
no,
again so many profound points and reflections and revelations. I mean,
thank
oh
you.
man, I mean, you're on point with it, and then going and referencing back to how we go forward and backwards, at the same time. And
Yeah.
sometimes I realize, even in my own evolution, I have to be, easy on myself with it because I'm still growing and evolving through a certain portion or a section of my inner and eventually overstanding.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It's a timely process when you may not have the environment or other external support factors, and you have a lot being pulled and demanded of you in this particular moment in time that your life is in.
Yeah.
And in saying that, like anything else, some things will eventually fall away slowly, and other things will fall away suddenly.
Yeah.
But it relates to it, in my spiritual opinion, of how open we are to the process. And eventually, I realized the more I study about the the subconscious, the heart, mind, the chakras, all the other spiritual tools and modalities, whether it's old age, new age, I'm a remix, filter, flip, get wherever I need to get from it all, whether it's discussions like this and others on the path and the journey. We extract things to see the connect where we may disconnect. And in saying that to you, wow, again, you're on point with it. And,
Thank you.
one thing I realize is that the more you sharpen, I think you would agree with this, the more you sharpen that inner light and you evolve that inner and higher voice, things become more automatic, would you say?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You know, it's again, like I say, all change happens from within. You know, there is little physical stuff. You know, I could go change my hair color right now. That's happening on the physical cool. But again, the idea of it started from within. So in essence, yeah, all change happens from within. So yeah, you know, once you connect back to that fully alignment and yeah, it's nothing but good from there. But again, it's knowing what true alignment is, because it could be again too, like even stepping into spirituality right now where a lot of people are waking up on the planet. I feel like there's a lot of information out there that can distort you, or even if you know you're someone and there's so much different star seeds of, you know, us truth speakers out there, and we all have a different perspective because we all have a different human mind. So the same way I express my truth might be different to where you express your truth, and different to someone else. So again, someone who's trying to step into this path and they're seeing all different points of stuff of what alignment truly means, it can be like, ah. But again, once you make the dedication just to have certain practices that can align you, meditation, routine, rituals, whatever it is that you decide to do, your inner knowing and inner intuition is always going to guide you at the highest point. And you'll know that by the way you feel, your heart, you know, what's right, what's good.
That is very. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, I'm just going to say if it's including everyone and just, yeah.
Again, you're on point and you're correct, and I agree. And that's the part about this process, because, you know, people sometimes hear people who speak from a spiritual place or perspective, whether they're old or an elder or young, that we got it all together. We're perfecting in our external life. And as I come to recognize over the years, even in my own self, there's a lot I still have to work on, a lot I'm still learning to know and understand, and I'm still healing from ancient trauma and drama, let alone having to demonstrate my level of manifestation, what we call third dimensional reality, physicality, and what I want to do and what I want to see. And that can require sacrifice. It can require still some more heartache and pain and suffering. But I understand the process, and my default mind or my default higher spiritual mind will say, well, this is because of this. This is because of that. You know, because again, to become truly, let's just say, a magi or a magician or a high priestess or high priest or a high level of wizardry, that's another level of not only ritual and ceremony, but initiation. Especially if you want to master things in the physical.
Yeah.
And, you know, for some of us, as I, you know, especially, you know, with me speaking in my own right, you know, there's certain things that are still requiring me to creatively study more, read more, write more, listen more, rest more, meditate more, you know, make more of the hard sacrifices for the greater gain, you know, make more. Sometimes I need to be very just quiet,
Yeah.
but nonetheless inquisitive. Other times I need to just be very sudden and direct.
Yeah.
And I'm a balance of that equation as it manifests.
Yeah.
And as the years have now tacked on, you know, if that's my default.
Yeah.
Because I realize we have way more higher spiritual intelligence that can open up these hidden doors and pathways to see third dimension and help to manifest and support what you need and what you want. And sometimes it gets very real in the battlefield, as I like to say, when it's like, man, I'm down to $1 or $5, or man, maybe you got a nice lump sum check and came in. It's like, what am I gonna do now? You know. But we control a narrative in how we use quote unquote currency, money, you know, the pound, the yen, you know, and any other creative reference to, you know, currency based on the country, you know, that we're in. And in saying that, any thoughts on that?
What do you mean when you say what, like, kind of revamp the question a little bit?
Right. Well, I guess can you tell me what part, if you recall?
Like the, as you say, the currency sort, or like, or
okay.
or what just what
I
was
think.
the kind
Go ahead.
the kind of question kind of,
Right.
just so I can like get to go to the answer a bit clear.
Right. And I know I kind of just went into like a free flow with it, and you know,
Yeah, just a little.
a little more specifics. Right. I'm gonna do a little, I guess, a build around it, and then I give you the question. I was sharing that, you know, when we're evolving, there's still the physical needs on